Jason, how are you?
It's a good day. It's a good night.
It's a good day. It's a good night. And we got a great topic today. We're going to talk about the instant wealth syndrome. So what's happening right now is Canadian parents over the next 10 years, this is amazing information, will be looking at passing down via intergenerational wealth transfers to their children up to $750 billion, Jason. So there's lots of money being passed down to the kids. It's the greatest lottery ticket of all time is coming to those between 35 and 60, and they will be the beneficiary of this vast amount of wealth transfer. The other key point here is that the upcoming transfer is 50% more than was passed down in previous decades, and the generation after this one is going to get even more money. So there's a ton of money that is being passed down via wealth transition planning.
Well, for a lot of people too, it couldn't happen at a better time. So a lot of these 30 to 60-year-olds are in massive amounts of debt. We talk about it all the time with our clients about the debt. So this intergenerational wealth transfer couldn't happen at a better time for some of those people that need to pay off those bills.
I can't imagine, waking up one day and the lawyer, your parents pass away, God forbid, and then all of a sudden the lawyer says, oh, by the way, your dad had a bunch of property up north that he didn't tell you about, and there's some development happening, and there's 20 or $30 million there. Wouldn't that be
that'd be pretty nice.
Great wake-up call one day? Yeah. But there was a recent study, Jason, by the CIBC Deputy Chief Economist Benjamin Tal, and he made some remarks regarding this wealth transfer. And he said from an Angus Reid survey of over 1,000 people who expect to receive an inheritance, he noted in the report that in the next decade or so in provinces like BC, Ontario, and Quebec, more than 50% of those receiving inheritances are going to be ranging from $100,000 to $180,000. So not a huge amount of money being passed down, but there's some major wealth being passed down from the top to the future of their family as well.
Right, and that's one of the things that Tal also mentioned too, is that a larger proportion of the bequests are expected to go to high-income Canadians. So basically, the rich are passing down to their kids. So their kids are going to be, the rich again. So the generations continue to, the inequality of income just continues to grow.
Yeah, I was in a friend's house a few days ago, and he mentioned about a friend of his whose parents were quite wealthy, and I think they, he wasn't that wealthy, but I think the passing down was in the tens of millions of dollars, and so all of a sudden, this person who kind of grows up his whole life, and parents were affluent, but lived a very simple, humble life, and all of a sudden he bequests all this money, and what to do with it. So one of the biggest challenges right now with this wealth transfer is that those that hold the lucky lottery tickets, who are not prepared for the instant wealth scenario. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what they can do when it comes to inheriting this lucky bequest.
Well, the first thing is, you just said they're not prepared. The first thing is, get prepared. Start preparing your kids for that sudden wealth, because what happens, most parents don't talk about their wealth or lack of wealth, because a lot of kids think that their parents have a little bit more money than they really do, and then it turns out they've got some debt, or they've depleted everything because they've grown old and needed more money. So you've got to prepare your kids right out of the gate. If the kids are going to be so lucky to get some, it's not such a bad thing to just have those conversations before something happens.
And one of the things too, kind of to go against this a little bit, but there are those that think their parents are wealthy and affluent. And again, like you mentioned, they may have a ton of debt. So where kids are saying, hey, yeah, my parents might leave me $5 to $10 million. We got a big house, got a cottage, got this, got that, got a business. You never know what you're going to get until the estate is finally cleared. Number two here on some of the strategies around instant wealth syndrome is, again, to educate your kids early. And again, we talk about this now, again, not for a 30, 35, or 40-year-old, but for these younger kids as well, is get some good advice, get a professional on your side. And if you're a parent out there, a lot of parents sometimes won't disclose what they have or have not, but if you do have, you might want to bring them into your advisor's office or find an advisor for them that can help to build some planning around their goals and dreams, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things that they've got to consider. Maybe it is a good time to introduce your financial advisor to your kids. Because, for example, at our office, we have a great program called the Launch Program. Right. That's meant for young kids to understand what budgeting, insurance, mortgages, that type of thing. And maybe it's a good way to again, just to introduce your financial advisor to them and start building that relationship.
Well, again, building that relationship is critical, right? So again, how long does it take to build that? It might take a year, 2, 3, or 4 or 5. But again, it's important that because of the wealth transfer, start to take an action plan right away and don't put it off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it could be too late.
Exactly.
The other thing to consider is, there's a classic saying, those that are spenders don't suddenly become savers, and those that are savers don't suddenly become spenders. So it takes years and years of practice and discipline to teach your kids about what to do with their wealth and how to manage it properly.
I think one of the biggest concerns that I even think about all the time is, most of the parents out there, or those that have wealth, have spent 20, 30, 40 years to cultivate that wealth. And again, the kids maybe haven't been as financially savvy. The big fear is you're putting the keys to the Ferrari in the hands of a 25, 35, 40-year-old who hasn't had the best habits. What happens then? So it's important that you kind of get these kids on side. Number 6 here on some of the strategies when it comes to instant wealth syndrome is, if your kids are the executor of your estate, start to teach your kids how to maneuver through the estate. So a lot of times we see it, Jason, is people come in, they've done well, they've got a business, they're professionals, they've got assets, real estate, whatever it may be. And one of the questions I always ask them is, so you have a will? Yes. Great. Who's the executor? It's my kids, my 31-year-old son and my 28-year-old daughter, who really have no experience with an estate. So if you've named the kids as an executor of your estate, it might be a good time to get the kids up to speed on what actually goes into managing an estate.
I don't think people realize how important and how complicated being an executor is. So I think it is a ton of work. So I think you're right. You've got to let them know, start to prep them early.
Absolutely.
One of the other things that we that maybe you should consider for this instant wealth is considering setting up a testamentary trust for some of your spendthrift kids. So a testamentary trust has been popular. It's one of those estate planning tools for a variety of reasons. There's some tax benefits, but it can also ensure that if you think that child might blow the money right away, you put the money into one of these trusts, and you just have the trust provide some of a monthly income to the kids.
Exactly. So you can do the trust. You can consult with your estate team for that. We need to bring a lawyer in for that. Maybe bring in the accountant for that. The other option, which is kind of like a trust a little bit, Jason, is you can fund a life annuity. So what happens is you take the proceeds of your money, of your wealth. At some point down the road, you pass away. The proceeds go into a life annuity. So if you've got that child, again, who you're not really sure you want to leave a big lump sum, the money goes into the annuity. We use one of the bigger insurance firms in the country to buy the annuity. The annuity pays out a monthly income to the child every single month for as long as the child's alive. You can build in some guarantees in the back end that if the child dies a bit prematurely, the value will go to his estate. So a life annuity is another option. Again, it's one of those options where it's not for everyone, but we think it's important to at least have the conversation with your wealth advisor.
Right, and it's a guaranteed income for the rest of their life if you set it up properly. So the bottom line is that when Canadians, as you mentioned, when Canadians start passing down that $750 billion over the next 10 years to the intended beneficiaries, that the wealth took a generation or two to create, and that's the key. Is that this isn't something that your parents just just walked into probably. It's taken a long time for them to build up that and a lot of hard work. So it's important to make sure you know what you're doing when you're handing it down.
Yeah, because the person that created the wealth, the generation that comes behind them may not have as many successes as this person did. Opportunities could change. Kids can choose a different life path. You could have come from a professional family, but the kids become an artist. Again, loving their profession, but not going to make a ton of income in their lifetime. So again, you want to make sure that, when you have that lucky generation that has the ability to create a ton of wealth, that money hopefully can last for generations to come. So hopefully there's some thoughts out there for those out there. It's coming fast. We're seeing it every day now. We're getting phone calls. I would say once a month we get a phone call from a client who's inherited some wealth from mom and dad, an aunt or an uncle, and we're having these types of conversations. So hopefully, Jason, this can add some value to all of our viewers and our listeners that are out there. Yeah. Thanks again for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Always great to be here.
Great content, great job. And for those out there, again, feel free to check out the podcast. We're on YouTube. We're on the Apple platform.